Welcome to the Red Sneaker Podcast, your guide to success in the worlds of writing and publishing. Now, here's your host, best-selling author and founder of the Red Sneaker Writers Center, William Bernhardt.
Hello, Red Sneaker Writers. This is episode 31, going out on November 4, 2019. This podcast is for Red Sneaker Writers, people who are serious about having a writing career and want some practical knowledge to help them do it. My interview this time around is with Tara Cremin, who is the Author Experience Manager for Kobo Writing Life, which is Kobo's self-publishing platform. What? You may be saying there's an alternative to Amazon's KDP? Indeed there is, but I'm not sure everybody knows it. You may know of Kobo as an e-reader, but may not have realized they had its own platform. So I've got Tara on the program this time to explain to you everything that Kobo Writing Life has to offer. But first, the news. We've had a flurry of interesting news items and reports coming out of the publishing world recently, but one that particularly caught my eye just in the past week is a report coming from Bowker. As some of you may know, Bowker, B-O-W-K-E-R, is the company that, among other things, issues ISBN numbers, something that every book needs in order to market and distribute effectively. Well, because almost everybody needs an ISBN, Bowker is able to keep track of how many titles are published each year, including how many titles are self-published each year. Last year, Bowker reported that about 1 million self-published titles came out in 2017. Well, hang on to your hats. This year, they're reporting 40% increases. Yes, that's 40% on top of that 1 million, meaning about 1.6 million self-published titles, books from independent authors, in the past year. Well, before you get overwhelmed by the thought of all that competition, let's break that down a little bit. In the first place, Amazon is by far the leader in terms of where those books come from and where they go out. Amazon's KDP is providing self-publishing services and distribution. Last year, they had 85% of that market, and apparently this year, that has increased to 91.5% of the market, which comes to 1.416 million self-published titles, and that includes print-on-demand editions. Well, if there are 1.6 million total and 1.4 coming from Amazon, that should give you some idea of Amazon's market share. In fact, it's actually even bigger, though, because bear in mind, Bowker can only keep track of titles if they ask for an ISBN. There are, in fact, many authors who are self-publishing ebooks without ISBNs, usually, of course, through Amazon. In fact, it's a large number, so in fact, the number of self-published books coming out of Amazon may be even larger. Well, don't get depressed about the competition. Just realize that self-publishing has come into its own, that it's become a viable way of putting your books out in the marketplace. It's not just you, it's a lot of people, a lot of them very good authors. It's just a thing people do. So, if that's the way you want to go, continue to do it. And instead of feeling embarrassed or ashamed about it, instead focus on how do I make my books rise to the top, which is usually one, by writing it really well, which is what the Red Sneaker Writer Center is all about, and then, of course, marketing it very well. Just in case you're wondering, Smashwords is the number 2 largest player, although they are, of course, well behind Amazon, distributing and issuing about 72,000 ISBNs last year. Here's one other thing that came out of the Bowker report that I thought was particularly interesting, though. An outfit called Christian Faith Publishing saw a 65% increase in titles over the past year. I've talked on previous podcasts about how booming the Christian book market is right now. It's one of the few realms of the publishing world that's seeing increases, and that appears to just be continuing to grow. This is why we always cover that book market thoroughly at WriterCon. It is a successful and significant portion of the book market at this time, and this success by Christian Faith Publishing suggests that that's just continuing. Bottom line, self-publishing continues to grow. Amazon is the leader, but that doesn't mean there aren't significant players in the game, which of course is why this podcast is later on going to talk to Tara Cremin at Kobo Writing Life. Couple other stories worth mentioning. I've mentioned Audible Originals. This, of course, is part of the audiobook boom, the other sector of the publishing market that's seen growth in recent years in addition to Christian books. Well, Audible, of course, is the leader in audiobooks, owned by Amazon, and they've started a program called Audible Originals, books written just for audiobook format. In the past, you've had to be a significant player or at least have a really good agent to pitch to them, but they've opened it up to everyone now. Anybody who wants to can pitch to Audible Originals. What they want is unpublished English language books that have been specifically written, maybe I should say crafted, for listening to. They're accepting both short-form and long-form works. Anything they accept will, of course, be exclusive to Audible. Speaking of Audible and audiobooks, let's talk a little bit about ACX, which, of course, is the entity affiliated with Audible and owned by Amazon. It's that the organization online that helps self-published authors produce and distribute their audiobooks. They're offering, again, ACX University. This is the 7th year for the university. It's an online masterclass which is completely free that will help you either get into the audio business or take it to the next level. If you've thought about getting into audiobooks, go check out ACX University. One last story from the tech world that I thought was particularly amazing. Google has announced that they've got a new voice recording app. What's the new? We've had voice recording apps before. Yeah, but this one transcribes your words in real time. Yes, you heard that right. You don't even have to wait around for a transcription anymore. It happens while you're talking. For the present, that's only available on Google's new cell phone, the Pixel 4, but how long will that be true? I suspect it will go far and wide. Certainly, I'm hoping for an iOS version, and I bet I'm not the only one. If you'd like to know more about this, Sarah Perez has written about it on TechCrunch, and I know Joanna Penn has also tried it out and written about it at the Creative Pen. Imagine a world where you can have a written or digital transcription of your work just as quickly as you can dictate it. We've talked in the past about how some people are dictating their work now, and I had an interview guest who talked about how you can accomplish that. I think some people are doing it. I'm still, I'm so old-fashioned, I'm putting my fingers to a keyboard. But imagine how this could transform the entire writing world. We already live in a universe where a lot of younger people cannot write legibly and don't need to because they've learned to use a keyboard since they were very young. Maybe now they won't even need to learn how to use a keyboard. They can just dictate, kind of like that Star Trek episode with Terry Garr where Gary Seven pulls out the antenna and the typewriter, how quaint. The typewriter types up whatever she says. Well, now you can actually do that with your cell phone. So if that catches on, who's going to need to either even be able to type? We may not be writers anymore, at least in the traditional sense. Will I have to change the name of this group to Red Sneaker Talkers? I hope not. As my springboard for the writing tips section this time, I want to refer to an article recently issued by Written Word Media. It's called Author Income: How to Make a Living from Your Writing, written by Ricky Woolman. What's happened here is that the author has basically conducted an extensive survey of authors, and in presenting her data has broken authors down into 3 categories. Emerging authors, like perhaps some of you, people who are just starting but have never made more than $60,000 a year from book sales. The second category is the 60K group, people who have made $60,000 but not $100,000. And then the third group, the superstars, at least in terms of sale, are people who have made $100,000 or more in a year from their books. I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that everybody would rather be in the latter category, the $100,000 a year category. So what are the common factors that this survey found to be true for those people? Well, here are some of the findings, the ones that I think are worth talking about on this podcast. First finding: the number of books you've written and are selling matters a lot. To some extent is just common sense, but maybe you didn't realize how important that was. In general, the people are, on average, I should say, the people in the 100K club have published more than 25 books. Now, if you're still working on your first one, don't panic. Just remember, you're the tortoise, not the hare. Slow and steady wins the race. That doesn't mean you should just churn out junk as quickly as you can do it. That's not the way to find success in the writing world. But it does mean that you should work consistently. As I've always told my Red Sneaker writers, write every day. Sign that contract in the back of the story structure book and commit to a daily writing schedule. Even if it takes you months or even a year or more to write a book, if you just make yourself do it every day, pretty soon you too can amass a stockpile of titles. And common sense, the more you have to sell, the more income you're going to generate from it. The second finding I found of note is closely related to the number of books, and that pertains to the amount of time. How much time do the people in the 100K club spend writing, not thinking about writing, not marketing, but actually writing every week? And the answer was over 30 hours a week. And you can see, on the chart, the numbers go down for the 60,000K club and go down even more for emerging authors. Until you increase the number of hours you're writing every week, you're probably not going to transform yourself from emerging to one of the 2 higher categories. You need to commit to writing regularly and substantially. I know some people have day jobs, you got families, and you can't write as many hours as you would like. But find the time. If you're serious about this, find the time, because it will make a difference. The more hours, the more books, the more successful you'll be as a writer. Third finding has to do with professional editors, and I found this particularly amazing, surprising actually, and worth reporting, not just because I offer editorial services to people, but because it shows dramatically what a difference using professional editors makes. How many of the people in the 100K club use professional editors? Almost all of them. Almost 80% of them report that they use a professional editor. And in case you're wondering what that costs, it varies widely, but most report spending somewhere between $250 and $1,000 per book on an editor. Easier to do, of course, if you're actually making some money from your writing. But I think there's a symbiotic relationship here. People who are taking it seriously, working every day, producing, and spending money to make sure their work is of professional quality end up doing better. It's probably no surprise to you that the professional highest earning authors also get professionals to do their covers. That's just common sense. Probably not a big surprise to you that they also use promotional sites like BookBub and others to promote their work.